So we negotiate every day. Lawyers especially negotiate a lot, and if you're in business, you probably negotiate formally a lot as well. What most people don't realize is how often we informally negotiate to get agreement and to settle differences. It's numerous times per hour, typically, and it determines how we're seen. So our ability to negotiate well and the approach we take negotiates how other people view us. So it is very, very important. And there's lots of factors in negotiation style. So training, after today, you will have a different perspective on how you approach negotiation and I assume for most of you, a broader perspective of what is involved. Professionally, we are trained in law to negotiate in certain ways. As a profession, we do tend to negotiate in set ways as a group, which is sort of interesting. And I understand a lot of you are lawyers here, so that is why I'm telling you specifically about that profession. Culture as well influences how we negotiate. There's a whole bunch of literature on national cultural negotiation. Personality does as well. The Myers-Briggs and the Thomas Kilmann show us that, in fact, if you have certain personality preferences, specifically or mostly with regard to decision-making, then you will have a favorite in terms of approaches. And then, of course, gender. So let me tell you about how the information and research has changed over the years I've been doing this. So there we go, dancing backwards in heels, and I will tell you why that is. 1987, when I started teaching at the university, at York University, I was so interested as a psychologist. Yes, that is the horse and buggy days, 1987. I was interested, of course, I was a psychologist then, so I was interested in gender and personality and negotiation approaches. And so I looked at the literature, absolutely no gender differences. So no differences between males and females as lawyers in the negotiated results. And so I thought, okay, there's no gender differences. So fast forward to 2003, and Princeton and Harvard researchers were showing that, in fact, yes, there are differences. Women don't ask. So most men, 57% negotiate their first salary. It's around 7% for women. So we don't ask. So it was, the big movement then was women don't negotiate well, they don't ask. So we just teach them to ask and the gender wage gap will go away, right? Okay, you all know we're now in 2017 and that hasn't happened. So 2010, they kept doing more and more research and they found that women are smart not to ask. We get it. We violate gender expectations and we get penalized for asking directly for what we want. We appear aggressive and competitive because of gender stereotypes. So we're smart. We know better than to do that. So that's what they were finding. They were, it becomes more nuanced the more research they do. So gender expectations, we have to be careful with them. That's the backwards in heels. We're good negotiators. But we are aware that we are not just negotiating outcome. And so for those of you who attended in 2011, you will know what I talked about, outcome and relationship. We had that really fun win game. And so it really illustrates that when we negotiate, we don't just negotiate for the outcome. We negotiate the relationship with the other party. So that's what we are careful about when we negotiate, backwards and heels. So 2017, I've got lots of strategies, which you'll hear about if you attend in the fall, for dealing with gendered expectations and gender bias. One of them is just playing into it. That's just being, playing into the feminine stereotype. And so we don't get stereotype backlash. The other one is calling it, and I'm very inspired by young women. I'm on the advisory board for Young Women in Law. The stories they tell me now, they are seeing the gendered expectations and bias in real time in the negotiation and calling it. Playing into it if they decide that's the way to go, or calling it.